Hey there, it's Boltzmann here. Welcome to another episode of the Analog series. On this episode, we are going to see how to make an old school electro bass. We'll start by duplicating this channel, muting the original. I'm going to bypass all the processing. And I've done some mapping of some parameters. We are going to talk about that later. For now, I'm going to ungroup this and drop a new instance of analog to initialize the synth. So I'll start by turning off oscillator 2. I'm going to turn it back on later. We want oscillator 1 to keep the waveform as a saw. I'm gonna detune it slightly, something like 0.13. I'm gonna add some pitch envelope at about minus 45%. And a relatively short time around 20%, 18-20%, something like that. I will automate this later. This time can change the sound dramatically. And I'm gonna add the sub-level to the max. Something like this. It sounds like shit because the synth is not set to monophonic. Much better now. I'm gonna add unison and to the maximum. Like this. I'm also gonna add vibrato around 50 or 55%, and I'm gonna increase a little bit the rate. Do something like this. Let's move to the filter section. On filter 1, I'm gonna use a low pass filter. I'm gonna set the frequency down to around 600 Hertz. Not percent, hertz. I will automate this later. And the resonance between 25 and 30%. Now we want the attack to be much slower. At around 1.8 seconds. That works pretty well. The decay a bit less, around 500 milliseconds, and the sustain at 0.35. Now I'm going to increase this envelope here to around 6. And I'm going to drive it with the symmetrical 2, Sim2. Very good. Let's move to amp 1. I'm going to increase the attack to 800 milliseconds. Increase the decay to 2.2 seconds. 2.19. And decrease the sustain to about 0.2. I'm gonna add a little bit of envelope, just slightly. Yes, I'm gonna turn LFO 1 because we want LFO 1 to modulate the level. So I'm gonna put this to 1. And let's go to LFO 1. So I want it to be a sine wave. I want it re-triggered. And with a delay of 240 milliseconds. Now let's turn the rate to beats, and I'm gonna use the 1/4D. I'm gonna use either this one or the 1/16. I'm gonna keep it at 1/4D for now. Now I'm gonna add a little bit of noise, around minus 16 dB. And I need to check something. Yeah. And we want it to go to filter 2 at around 500 Hertz. For now, we are not going to be able to hear it until we turn on filter 2. So finally, let's turn on oscillator 2. I'm going to put it to a sine wave and increase 2 octaves. Also detune it slightly, like minus 0.15, something like that. I'm gonna put the pitch envelope to the maximum and the time around 15%. Something like this. So let's move to filter 2. Here I've used 4-man 6 dB, F6. I'm sorry you cannot see it here on the drop down. It's 4-man 6 dB, F6. I'm gonna turn it to 400 Hz, 450. We will automate this later. The resonance about 60%. We're not gonna be able to hear this until I turn on amplifier 2. It's gonna sound a bit rubbish. But we'll make this better. So for the filter 2, we want the attack at 5, decay as it is, sustain as it is, and we want 0 envelope. Check out the difference. Oops, it was clipping. Want it at 0. It's clipping pretty badly. Now let's go to the amplifier 2. I want to decrease the level quite a lot. I just want it a little bit above the minimum level. So like minus 38 dB, something like that. The attack to 220 milliseconds. The decay as it is, sustain as it is. And I'm gonna turn LFO 2 because I want LFO 2 to modulate the panning. Something like this. And we want the sine wave to be re-triggered and increase a little bit the rate, like 2.3, something like that. I think the panning is a little bit too much. Now let's turn on the processing. I have an EQ just to shave some of the lows and some of the highs. I have a glue compressor sidechain to the kick. A saturator. And a compressor at the ends. I'm gonna go back to the original to show you the mapping I've done. So I've mapped the filter frequency of filter 1, the resonance, also the attack of the filter 1, then the filter frequency of filter 2, the time of the first pitch oscillator, pitch envelope, sorry, this time over here, and the rate of LFO 1 to change it between 1.4D and 1.16. And I'm gonna turn it one by one so we can see what are the differences that this mapping does. This is the filter frequency. The resonance, I don't really play with it much. But you can get a more whispering sound. Then this one will change quite a lot the time of the pitch envelope. And lastly, the LFO rate. And that's it. I hope you have enjoyed this episode. Stay tuned for the next ones and see you there.